You are listening to the Hemp Beverage News Podcast, brought to you by the Hemp Beverage Expo, the only trade show in the space connecting brands with the retailers, suppliers, and distributors they need. Join us to hear from the people building it from the ground up.
Welcome. I'm your host, Pam Schmiel, the editor behind hempbeveragenews.com. Omar Ansari started Surly Craft Brewery around 20 years ago in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which also boasts a large beer hall and beer garden. Like many breweries, Omar pivoted to manufacturing THC drinks to make up for the decline in beer sales. He shares great insights in what to look for in a manufacturer, finding the right partnership for your business model, what could go wrong, and how to prepare for working with a manufacturer. Let's welcome Omar Ansari to the show.
Yeah, so Surly's been around 20 years. We started as a craft brewery, so literally just two guys making beer, and my head brewer was making it and packaging it, and I was delivering it and doing accounts receivable, accounts payable at home while I'm taking care of the kids. And, that's how it started 20 years ago. And that was sort of, I always call it wave two of the craft beer boom. And we built, we got some laws changed in Minnesota so we could sell beer to individuals. Minnesota's a state you couldn't sell someone a glass of beer. We got that changed. So sort of another explosion in the Minnesota craft beer scene. So we built a real large facility in the city close to the University of Minnesota. And, we're probably a similar story to many craft breweries. We've had a lot of challenges through COVID. In Minneapolis, we've certainly had even more challenges with George Floyd. It's been a really hard time for breweries to get through, just because it's the city is kind of emptied out and hasn't really come back. And now with ICE, that's been yet another challenge. So it was fortunate that I think it was 2022 when it was actually my rep, Ryan Winkler, passed a bill allowing for low dose hemp beverages. And we didn't really know what it meant at the time, right? It's the jargon that you don't really like. What is this? I don't understand what any of this is. And I remember when that bill got signed, a Minnesota senator said, "We didn't just legalize marijuana, did we?" They didn't legalize marijuana, but it kind of open the door. And I didn't know most of the people I knew didn't know anything about low dose hemp in any manner, but we quickly learned because there were a couple products that came to market, and all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, these are legal now, like these products. So things sort of exploded. Certainly, a lot of it came from the Minnesota craft brewers got into the beverages. And then we also had a lot of beverage companies from out of state looking for people to make products. And a lot of those companies were ones that were already in the rec space, right? That were making cannabis beverages, that were living in the dispensary world. So there were no rules when it started, for good and for bad. We'd have people ask us, like, well, what kind of, licenses do you have to make beverages and hemp beverages? I'm like, well, I sent a $25 licensing fee application to the city to tell them we were doing it. That's it. There was no regulatory anything. And, that allowed the beverages to be sold everywhere, all over the place. So liquor stores, grocery stores, gas stations, spas, salons. So the products kind of got out everywhere and became a thing real fast. Then as time went on, more regulations came into effect. They really started getting age gated properly and really finding their home in liquor stores, grocery stores a lot. And it's, Minnesota kind of became this testing spot for these new beverages and how they would work. And none of us really knew who was going to be drinking them, how it was going to go. And it's been kind of stunning, the growth in the industry and how many people are drinking those beverages. So most Minnesota breweries have their own brands, but I would say most breweries are now really absolutely dependent on co-packing and making beverages for other people in other states. I'll tell folks, when you go to liquor store, wherever you find your hemp beverages, there might be 100 brands out there. 7 of them might be from breweries. The rest of them are brands, which are a brand made by probably a brewery that So it's really become a lifeline for Minnesota breweries because we have all really seen a pretty precipitous drop in our beer sales. I think Minnesota took COVID pretty seriously, and I don't think the numbers have really ever recovered. And of course, changing drinking demographics, we all know that story. So it's really become a huge part of everyone's business, certainly in Minnesota, if you're a production brewery.
Yeah, I mean, I think everywhere, breweries, it just seems like from what I'm hearing. And so, yeah, before getting into like how all this works and things like that, what what are you seeing? What should like founders or entrepreneurs be aware of, approaching manufacturers? Because so many have jumped onto this because they need
Yeah,
the lifeline for their breweries, but not everybody's going to be the same. I feel like that's going to shake out at the end. Like,
yeah.
do you think any advice like approaching, a manufacturer or looking for one that they should really think about? Uh,
Yeah, I think that's one of the first conversations you have when you're talking to a co-packer is, a contract packager, co-man, contract manufacturer like ourselves is probably the most important thing is just to understand what their sweet spot is volume wise. Um, and usually whenever I'm talking to someone, we're trying to get that, like, we don't have to talk for half an hour and then get to it. It's like, hey, what kind of sizes are you guys looking for? Because take Minnesota, for example, we're probably one of the larger volume producers. And there's certainly larger ones than us in the country. So like we're not good with startups. We're not good doing really small batch stuff. I've got some friends in the industry that like they specialize in helping folks do formulations, helping them with regulations and labels and getting off the ground. So they're obviously really focused on a much smaller, I mean, they'll do 100 cases for someone. So trying to get that piece figured out early, because if you're looking to do 100 cases, like we're not using each other's time real well because we can't help you out. And same thing if you're an established brand. I met someone yesterday that they're doing oh boy, um, a lot. Couple, I'm trying to think. 600 barrels, 600, probably 7,000, 8,000 cases. Those other brands, those other breweries that are startups are like there's no pricing that will work for them, and actually just the volume won't fit, so they won't be a good partner. So just trying to say like, hey, like, are we good partners for each other? Um, is a pretty key part because it's such a volume business. Folks have been into craft breweries, and you can see there are small places that are brew pubs up to huge production breweries. So it's trying to find that slot of what's the right size.
And am I wrong in thinking that the most important part that they really need to think about, besides the brewery, is really the formulation because you're getting sent the formulation to mix into whatever flavors, basically,
Yeah.
right? So that's not as complicated as getting that, of course, your flavor right, but somebody that's consistent, or does that all carry over to you? Because I guess you have to have the consistency as well. What are the challenges for you and
Yeah.
their breweries?
Recipes are so different from brand to brand. And, we will usually, after that first conversation, send someone an NDA and say, listen, why don't you share your recipes with our head Ben, who's our head brewer, who looks through everything, and the team has to do the work to um, understand the recipe, see if it fits in, because there's some things we won't do because we've run into problems in the past, and some recipes are extremely complicated, and that might not be a fit for where we're at, what we're looking to do, because we have some folks that send us totes of pre-mixed product and we add water and emulsion. Some folks even have the emulsion in it, so all we're doing is adding water and packaging. Those are real simple because they've taken care of everything on the back end. Other folks, we're procuring all of the ingredients on that recipe. So it's folk there's some technical pieces that um, you need your co-packer to look at that recipe as soon as they can to say like, hey, this is something we can do. There's some particular products out there that need special mixers that not everyone has. And just trying to get to some of those issues right off the bat, as quick as you can, because there are some things where like that's not what we do. So hopefully that someone else will be a better fit.
So the complication is in so basically the complication is if they ask you to do the actual mixing of the recipe.
Yeah.
And what would make something complicated? Is it the measurement or is it?
No, no, I mean that's all right. Everything's measured
Yeah.
out. Everything is that. I guess, the first thing is just the number of ingredients. Some will
Oh,
have some folks that have like 6 or 7, and that's pretty standard. And we've looked at some recipes that have, 20 different steps.
uh,
And
I see. Okay.
those, I'm sure they taste great. And it's not that, it's kind of, for us as a co-packer, it's really all about efficiencies, right? Like we are trying to, that is the business. It is constantly, emptying a tank, cleaning the tank, moving the packaging line into a new product to keep running. The margins are really slim. So you're always trying to be efficient and doing things quickly. And if there's 20 steps, that means there's 20 steps that we can get wrong. There's 20
Mm,
times we can have a mistake. And they're no one wants to set themselves up for failure of like, well, that didn't work right, because they're not gonna, they'll usually the customer is, they're like, well, that was the recipe, like what's the problem? It's like, well, yeah, these take a lot of time. And that's one way you bid out a job, is like how much effort it takes to put it together. So it's just one of the things to consider. But for example, we ran into some customers who um were using real juice in their products, and there were some solids in them, some pulp in it, right? I mean, think about like orange juice that has pulp in it. You it was the first time, like for a lot of these beverages, it was the first time we were getting into a lot of this world of co-packing. Um, it clogged up our filters. The way their SOPs were written, their standard operating procedure of here's how you make our beverages, like it just didn't end up working with the way we were manufacturing them. And then it ends up that the THC emulsion ends up binding with some of the pulp. So then the product was out of spec. And so then there's a lot of this of like, well, whose fault is it? Like, why isn't the product a spec? And we would tell them, like, we did what you told us to. That we didn't make a mistake in the production of the product. And then sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, well, our other manufacturer, they did it this way. It's like, well, you didn't tell us that. Like, that's too
okay.
late to tell us that now. Like, the product's in a can. We made it the way you asked us to. So, that's a learning process for everyone. And there are ways to mitigate that, but that's not how we didn't know that in advance. We know that now. So, like, we won't work with folks that have got, have that kind of high solids in their juices. And, most people we know have kind of moved away from that. A lot of times you don't know that until you do it, right?
Mm.
So just trying to understand some of the unique aspects of a particular customer's recipes are pretty key.
So they're working with someone to make the emulsion, the TH,
Right.
give them the concentrate,
Right.
and then they have to get it mixed into this flavor formulation. So
Right.
it's either they give you the bulk and you mix it with water. They give you the whole formula
Yeah.
concentrate, I guess, and you mix it with water.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to do it? Meaning,
Well, that's easy, right?
right,
But
that's
then
easy.
that means that's a pretty high level of sophistication from that customer, that they have everything pre-mixed in totes. So, we only have a couple of those, and
Okay, so
that's not the majority of customers at all. It's definitely the exception. It's great because it is a pretty standard. Really, it's just trying to figure out the product to water ratio and then carb it up and test it. But that's not how most folks work, right? Certainly not startups, because it's
they
different.
don't, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be doing it for a while, and there's lots of efficiencies on their end if they do it that way, because they can send it to different parts of the country. Because a lot of people, bigger brands, have co-packers around the country, right? Shipping water is expensive, and a THC beverage is mostly water, right? So, if they do that, they're going to have a more consistent product, most likely from one spot to the other. So that's what some bigger brands do, but don't usually do it. So, we usually tell folks. Where a lot of brands start with is with an emulsion supplier, right? So they've got to find someone, and oftentimes that's their beginning of their emulsion supplier will recommend folks that they work with, that they've had good experiences with, because it's a pretty tight relationship between us and the emulsion supplier, because everyone's got to make sure the products are working right. Because if the emulsion's not working, if there's an issue with um, that product binding with something, then you've got a problem. So it's a great way to start is asking your emulsion supplier, who do you work with, and they'll often recommend recipe houses, flavor houses to help you develop flavors if you don't have one in house already. Like those are the key beginning pieces, at least for us. There are places here in Minneapolis, St. Paul that there are a couple folks, they will help you write recipes. That's what they're good at. So there's kind of a couple different ways really to approach how you get those recipes, but there's really not much we can do for someone until they've got that basic piece done, right? Because it's just you have no idea kind of all of the variables involved in writing those recipes. What are the ingredients in it? Are they hard to get? Is it sugar? Is it sucralose? Is it um, a non-caloric sweetener? There's lots of different ways to go, and that's where your recipe folks, your ingredient suppliers, really, like, that's what they do, right? They specialize in that piece. So that's always step one.
Can you recommend any of these like recipe, I guess they'd be flavor
Yeah, I don't actually have anyone. The
that you
flavor
love?
house, those are big companies that we get, drums, containers, of flavorings from. So we don't, we more like just get stuff from them.
Mm.
Then, there's a couple breweries I just know in the Twin Cities, Sociable Cider Works, Earl Giles, like their specialty is writing recipes and helping folks get going. So
Mm.
like those are a couple places that are, here in the city is good examples of that is a co-packer that can help you do recipe formulation stuff too.
Oh, okay. So sometimes a co-packer might have that,
Uh-huh.
like a food scientist. Is that what it is?
Uh, I
Or
don't
just
know, think it necessarily be food scientists because this is a pretty narrow scope of products that we're making here, right?
okay.
But it's a service they'll offer, and you have got to pay for it. I mean, if you go to a flavor house, they might do that work for free, but you're kind of then locking yourself probably into that company's products. Um, if you're working with a co-packer, you're going to pay for those services because it's time,
Of
right?
course.
It's
Yeah.
time to help work on that. So once again, a couple different ways to go.
Okay. Yeah. This is a really interesting way, yeah, to navigate how they have to navigate those first steps.
Right.
Yeah, that whole flavor profile. And that's one of, I love beverages, but one of my complaints is that I can't wait till we get to the next level of sophistication and flavor because, it's basically flavored seltzer water at this point, but
Right.
maybe not in Minnesota because you guys are, you just have so many
Well,
brands.
that was Gen 1, right? I mean, that was the first generation, was basically
Yeah.
LaCroix with THC. Those were
Yeah.
really easy to make. Everyone kind of understands what they are. They were low calories, which everyone was pretty much thinking was a key component to the space. But certainly, as time has gone on, we've seen the products we're making far more sophisticated in their flavors and the ingredients. They're using a lot more real juices and extracts.
Mm.
A lot more flavor forward is definitely kind of um, what's the latest kind of flavors out there are beverages that taste kind of like any other sodas that you can buy, or beverages. I mean, there's so many beverages in the store now, right? Not just THC. I mean, go into a Whole Foods and it's like, whoa, there are a
I
lot of
know.
beverages out there now, right?
Seriously, it's
For
crazy.
everything, every kind of particular, functionality you're looking for, there's something out there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And are you focused just on, are you doing RTD drinks, spirits, or is it just a
Well,
beverage?
yeah, we just actually got our distilled spirits license, so we'll have our own RTD coming out. I think we're blending it next week, and we're working on it for a couple other folks in Minnesota of making some RTDs for them. Um, we're certainly looking to diversify, as everyone in the craft or everyone in the hemp beverage space is aware. We're all waiting to see what's going to happen. So, for us, we just happened to kind of fall into this spot where we kept getting phone calls and references from our emulsion suppliers, and had kept having people come to us. So it became something, a thing got pretty good at and known for. So we sort of kept going with that. So yeah, we do RTDs. We do some beer for folks too, not too often, but a lot of THC beverages, some energy drinks, kind
Oh,
of
okay. So
the gamut.
are people, do you, are people starting to maybe explore like THC beer flavored. It tastes like beer, but it's THC. I've
Yeah,
seen.
that's tough because you really can't, once you get into the beer and alcohol world, the government is regulates that, right? So
Oh, okay.
THC is not really regulated a lot, right? So
Okay.
once you start adding once there's any alcohol in the product, even if it's
I mean, no
zero
alcohol.
to like an NA beer is less than 0.5%. The TTB, the government still considers that part of their purview, and it's so you don't really see many NA beers out there with THC, even if the alcohol's been removed, because there's still a little bit left. And then
Okay.
you're
Okay.
working with the feds, and you cannot add non-approved, um, non-improved. You cannot add non-approved ingredients to a beverage. So that's actually a whole gamut of things in the world, and THC is one of them. So, like we're talking with someone that has an NA beer that is 0.0, there is no alcohol in it, and adding THC. So there, lots of people would like something like that, but we haven't really seen any of them kind of, I guess, take off. Maybe, but I think that one of the holy grails would be, if you could have a Heineken 0.0 with THC, that would probably do pretty well. But those big guys kind of
No,
have tech that
seriously.
we don't have.
And so why do you need a special license to do a spirit? I mean, if it's just adding the emulsion to a flavor like a juniper flavor or something, you know what I
Well, you
mean?
don't. Well, you need a license to make, alcoholic beverages. That's what you need the license for. So you don't need a license necessarily to do the THC stuff, but those two things can't cross streams.
Okay, but can you make a flavored, like, some brands are out there coming out with, I tried one, it's like MXM something, and it's a gin, mock gin, THC. And I tried it, it tastes just like gin. So I didn't know, but that wouldn't be a special license for that
Well,
for
that I mean, there's no gin in it, right?
yeah, that's what I
Like,
mean. Yeah.
so it's probably not gin that then had the gin removed. It's probably
Oh,
something that is
taste.
mocking, right? Is tasting like it. It's just beer
Yes.
is a really hard product to make it taste like beer if it's not beer.
Okay. Okay.
The fermentation process adds a flavor that, when you take it out, I always just say like NA beers always kind of felt like they were missing something. And it's just that flavor component that alcohol adds, fermentation adds. So like when you're talking about a gin based THC, gin mocktail, mock gin THC beverage, it's probably going to be pretty, right, juniper, pretty kind of botanical forward.
Yes.
That's the part that it's mimicking, right? Not the alcohol part of it. So
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just feel like, you know, those are going to start coming into play.
sure.
Yeah, I
I
feel like
mean, that's the thing with THC. There's, it's going to be in every beverage
it's
that,
going to be in everything. I know.
anything you can think of, there'll be a THC in it outside of alcoholic beverages, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be crazy. Then how about as far as I'm just thinking any other advice as far as like inventory control, but we were kind of talking at the beginning
Yeah,
about you're not really a benefit to startups. Like what is like that's a hard thing as a startup brand. How do
sure.
they go out and get their sales first? I mean, determine
I
when they're
mean,
not even out there yet. How
yeah, I mean,
many
at this time, like that's how things could start back in the day, when the market launched. But I think distributors are so, they're now cutting brands. They're not adding brands, right? For a while, distributors would they'll take anything, just new products, and now they're definitely doing SKU rationalization, getting rid of products that aren't moving. So it's a far more competitive space to enter into.
yeah,
And I would say now, if you don't have a product that someone can taste, you're not. There's pretty hard, pretty
yeah.
hard to launch something unless you have an in, like you're already a beverage company and they know you. But just being someone that's like, I got an idea, you're going to have to go out and raise some money and do some test batches to get going for sure.
Yeah, it seems like a hard point to come in right now as a beverage. There's everybody who's
Well,
in.
well, right now is a pretty hard
Well,
point.
I mean, besides that,
Besides the fact that the industry might go away, yeah, that
yeah,
definitely has
besides
got
that,
some pressure. A lot of folks aren't willing to take flyers right now just because no one wants to get stuck with inventory come November.
Yeah, I know. God. Oh, God. Yeah, this is getting crazy. How about would you give any advice about procuring cans? Like, is there anything that, when they're starting,
Yeah,
what
there are
can
a couple. There's three ways to do it. You can sleeve a can, um, which might have the lowest, cost barrier. You can digitally print cans, which they look great. They're pretty, low quantities. That's what most people do. The cheapest thing to do is to buy a truckload of cans. The issue with that is, then you're really getting some huge cost savings. Probably the biggest challenge this industry has is, we are set up with states' rights. So our packaging changes all the time. And
Mm.
it's a huge challenge to the industry because, we're trying to place an order. We're working with one of our older, bigger customers, and they called up. Let me see. I always think I'm a brewer, so I think in barrels, which is a beer thing. But
Uh,
these guys called us up and they said, "Hey, we want to give you an order for 50,000 cases," and we were working on things. And then they called back and said, "Hey, actually, we need to split that 50,000 into two runs of 25,000." I'm like, "Okay." Then they called back last week and said, "Hey, we actually need to shift that down to no, that's not right. What did I say? 50,000, about 12,000 cases." And then yesterday they called and said, "We actually need to bump that back up to 25,000
oh,
cases."
wow.
Um, and a lot of that's just due to constantly changing packaging issues. The cans are going to be far less of an issue than the carton. Whether if you use a pack tech, which is sort of the easiest way to do it, but the cartons are what most people have moved to, and that's the thing most places get hung up on is we will be working with a brand, and there's different people in every company, right? So we're talking to maybe the procurement team, oftentimes one of the principals of like, "Hey, we need this product, we're launching, we've got a new distributor, we need this fast." And like, well, the fastest we can get you in is 6 weeks because we don't have any cartons done. So we can pencil you in. And then the artwork process starts. And this just happened to us. These guys have been hammering on us for months to be like, "We need this, we need this." And we're like, your team hasn't approved the art. And every day your team doesn't approve the art, it moves out to production day because we don't make the cartons. And like, the carton world
Classic.
is, it's such a huge part of the business, and it's just a lot of people don't think about it. You know, if you're making 50,000 cartons, like that's nothing.
What do you
Like,
mean cartons? Like
well,
packs of
the box that you put them in.
oh, like they're case packs?
Here I got some high noon. We don't make high
Oh,
noon, but this
yeah.
this is the carton, right? This
Oh,
is the
yeah.
box,
Gotcha. Okay.
and they're all different. I mean, every company, every co-packer you work with has a different machine that puts the cans in the box. So every company has a different die line
Oh,
because we can't use like this is a econo flap. Like we have full flap, even from machine. Like so, you can't take the cartons you have at one company and then bring them to another company and say run these. It just doesn't work that way. So those cartons take forever to make because the same places we're getting 25,000 from, High Noon's ordering 5 million, right? So
yeah.
like we're all of us are small potatoes in those because those are huge factories. And um it it's probably the most difficult pieces of co-packing is the carton piece. We've got a
Amazing.
customer who they're like, "Omar, your prices are out of line. Like we need like you've got to do better." I'm like, "Well, we're really passing on those prices." And they'll say, "Well, listen, we don't want to make a lot because the government regulations change so much. Like we've thrown away hundreds of thousands of cartons because if
Uh,
you sell in Texas and Texas changes the regulation, you need a new box,
uh,
right?"
how
And
about
then
stickers?
Florida has it. Well, sure, but to
Yeah.
sticker something means someone then needs to come in and sticker it. Like
Mhm,
it's like
mhm.
there's never like we just quoted stickering for someone and
I know that's
it was $1.25 a case.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
a lot of times the folks on the brand side like, "Well, just sticker it." It's like, well, sure, I now need to work overtime, bring in a manager, bring in 3 people. Minneapolis is a high labor market. It's going to be $20 an hour. If, then someone has to restack the pallet. Like, it's time. It's not. So a lot of those things, you don't want to do it. You do it because with your customers you have to. And we've stickered stuff occasionally to help out. We all get it. We're all in the same business. But on that carton piece, we'll have someone saying, I don't want to order any extra because I don't want to get stuck with inventory, because that's just money you throw away. But 25,000 versus 50,000, I mean, the cost difference between those is substantial. I was looking at quoting here, I'll just give you an example because I have a quote right up here from a carton manufacturer. So we're talking, so this is a 4-pack sleek carton right here. So you would need 6 of these per tray, right?
Okay.
So if, let's say, you only want to order 10,000 of them because you want to do a small run, these are going to cost about 54 cents a piece. If you do 100,000 of them, they're 32 cents a piece. So, folks always want a better price, which is understandable, but they don't want to commit to inventory, which is understandable. So the pricing then gets tricky, right? It's like, well, they're like, Omar, you need to do a better job on pricing. I'm like, well, then you need to order more. Like, I can't, something's got to give.
Come
Something's
on.
got to give. And on that business, like, the volume is such a different, I mean, there are times where we'll say, if you just order a couple thousand more, you can cut your price in half because you're hitting, I don't understand that business really well, but there's some breaks in there that, so they take a long time to make. And same thing, like I said, these guys have been hammering us for weeks, and we're like, you haven't approved your artwork. There's nothing we can do. So
that is so classic.
It's tricky, and I get it. And it's oftentimes someone's like, wait, we haven't done what? It's like, yeah, you need to talk to your own team. Like, that's not we're helping to get things done, but that's not our business. Like, you have to approve your own artwork. We can't be they're all branding companies, kind of how the product looks is pretty key. So that's a big challenge in the industry, is the carton piece, because folks will want to, they'll want to cut their orders or double their orders. And it's like, right, but we've slotted you in for a time. Like, we can't just increase orders because you've got word that your product's selling well. And I understand we're in the business too, but we don't have extra, probably cans of yours in house. We probably don't have extra ingredients of yours. We probably don't have extra cartons. And if we, increase your order, that means someone else's order gets bumped. And certainly no one wants that. So it's really a pretty tricky business. If you're co-packing maybe beer or high noon, the cartons don't ever change, or maybe they change once a year. Your sales rates are pretty standard, right? And it's just so difficult with THC because states open and close all the time. The carton, what you have to put on the carton, I mean, it's different in every state. So there's just a lot of really challenging parts to this business that, maybe if there'll be some federal regulation, it'll in time help that a lot, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, wow, that is so tricky. That is really tricky. So just to confirm, so you offer printing in boxes, procuring boxes, and cans as well? Like if somebody came to you and said,
we sometimes do. I mean, we actually like it better when the customer supplies them, because then it's not, it's also like a huge cash outlay, right? Like, you think about the amount of dollars that, we've got a $156,000 invoice to a customer for ingredients, and I got to ping them today and be like, hey, we make a couple bucks a case. Like these are huge numbers. Like, we are not a bank. Like, we can't fund that stuff. So, how kind of companies handle that, every co-packer is a little different. Some are like, we're not going to touch anything. You send it to us and then we'll make it. It's all a little bit different on how folks do it. And, certainly some smaller brands are like, hey, we need, we want you to supply us with all this stuff. And, it's a lot of time to work on getting people cartons, getting people cans. And, it's part of the business we're in, but it is extremely challenging to juggle all of those pieces. So usually the bigger folks we work with, they will, ship us cans, they will ship us cartons that are our particular die line, and they kind of handle that end. It just makes us more efficient, which means they're going to get a better price. Because if we have to juggle all of those pieces, it's just a lot more of our time. you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. Wow, that's really good. That's great insight. And then I guess just winding down, maybe just would love to get your advice on maybe what brands should be aware of, or working with distributors. Like
Ooh.
yeah, I don't even
Um,
know where to start with that, but just
yeah,
yeah, what
that's a
would
tricky
you say?
one.
Yeah, as far
You
as
know, it,
representing them well, I don't know. There's
if you're working with folks that, if we're talking to people that have never worked with a beverage wholesaler before, like they're new to the industry, um, what one of the things that's important to know is, it certainly helps to have salespeople in the market. Every distributor will tell you how great of a job they do selling stuff, but at the end of the day, they're called distributors. They're most efficient in what they do is distribute products efficiently. Um, so
yeah.
depending on them to sell all of your product, that's pretty hard. That's a hard lift. But I think you really have to talk to them to try and understand your depletions of how fast your product is moving. Because
Mm,
we've been doing this for 20 years and we still have problems with our beer distributors of them not ordering the right quantities because they'll do a load in when a new product launches. The numbers look great because they put all this product out there. So we'll have customers call like their second or third run and be like, "Oh my God, like we need to double our order." And we're like, "Okay." And if we can, we'll try and make it work. And then they'll realize like, oh, it's not actually selling that fast. They don't need as much as they thought. So then they want to cut it back down again. And it's like, well, now we just ordered all the product. So you can't, because like that's how this works. Um, so if you just depend on your distributors and don't sort of spend that time with them trying to understand, like, is that how's this product moving? It's full of product that you don't know what to do with. Another key I think piece is understanding the 3PL world. So we have a large warehouse, 60,000 square foot warehouse. So we work with a lot of our customers and can find a way to hold on to stuff for them for a little bit. Um, I know other co-packers are like, we don't have any room. So when we make it, you pick it up within 7 days. Like
mm,
that's it. So if you don't have, because your distributor does not want to be your 3PL or your logistics company, they're not going to take it all. So you need to find, and go Google it, 3PL, they're all over the place. But it's another like expense that people don't think of, like, wait, it's going to cost me money to ship the product somewhere and to store it. It's like, yeah, our rent just went up to $8 a square foot. Like, it's expensive.
yes.
Everything is getting more expensive, and real estate's one of them. And it's like, yeah, that pallet just sitting there, it costs us money for it just to sit there. And every time we move it, I've got a guy in a forklift. So all of these things, I think that people are like, well, that's not a big deal. Just do it. It's like, I've got, 5 guys in the warehouse driving forklifts all day long. And if you want me to pull a product out and
Mm,
ship it, like ship a couple samples to you, like those are hours of work. Like that's not, the fee that you paid me to do the packing, the tolling fee, it's usually called, like that doesn't include sending out boxes by FedEx to, um, uh, a magazine in New York because they want to try your products. Like all of those things cost us money. So it's a challenge we're always facing with, of trying to be a good partner. Like, yeah, we can help you out with that. But then we have some customers that are like constantly asking us to do things. And it's like, guys, we're spending, 4 hours a week on this. And that's, those are real dollars. So it's,
yeah.
I mean, the best thing you can have, I always say it's the same thing my therapist tells me, communication is the best thing you can have. With your like, you just want to be talking to your
Yeah.
if you're a brand, you want to be talking to your co-packer just to make sure you're all on the same page about things. Because as a co-packer, we want to be a good partner, but there's also just like, we can't do everything you think that you want us to do. There's just not enough time.
I'm sure a lot of brands don't think about that. Okay, we're done with this. You manufactured it. I got to get it into a warehouse, and then you have
Right.
your trucking fee. It's all about also those costs of
Oh,
your costs of what you're going to be selling your product at,
I think
your
there's a lot
cost
of brands that have gotten into it that there was an expectation to be making money and they really don't.
Yeah.
All of those things add up.
Oh my
If
God.
you have, I would always suggest anyone that's looking at new co-packers, like, well, get references, which is why your emulsion supplier is usually good, because they're not going to send you to a company that they know has had challenges,
Oh, okay.
because they're in the middle of it too. Um, if you have a recall, we are not the cheapest co-packer, and we will say that happily. But once you work in how much your recall costs, I
Uh,
mean, if there's a problem with your product, and there's plenty of horror stories out there of people getting product that doesn't have any THC in it, and or them just not following the SOPs of, like, oh yeah, I guess we didn't do it that way. It's like, well, then that's on the co-packer. But a lot of times, if you've already paid for it, then it's a lawsuit. So, references are probably the best thing, because, yeah, I mean, we'd give anyone new coming on board, 10 references of folks that have been happy with our work. So those are pretty key too, because breweries it doesn't take, all it takes to make a THC beverage is a canning line.
Is a
We've
what?
got canning line
Oh.
or a bottling line.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean you're making it well, and it's different than beer. We don't, like, beer doesn't ever get tested. No one tests your beer. You just sell it. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and I'm not trying to throw shade on anyone. It's just that
Yeah.
problems do happen, because it is different than making beer. And if it's not done right and you lose that THC potency, I mean, that's a disaster for everyone involved. We've got 4 people in our lab. We have an in-house HPLC, so we test the potency in-house. So, you won't be surprised later, like, oh yeah, I don't know what happened.
Oh, okay.
And probably another just big key that everyone needs to be aware of, like, you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to pasteurize your product, or you're going to have to add preservatives. So when we got into this, like, we bought an HPLC so we could do ongoing testing, because I realized that that's what this industry is going to need to grow. And we also put a pasteurizer in right away, because that's what people are looking for, is a clean label without preservatives. Whole Foods won't take it if there's preservatives in it. Then it's a whole nother set of costs, and you've got to get a letter from someone saying, here's the temperature levels you've got to hit. So not every craft brewer can pasteurize. And at the end of the day, it's going to be up to you as the brand owner to understand some of these pieces, because there's different ways to pasteurize. One's called flash, one's called tunnel. So flash just pasteurizes it before it gets to the canning line. So if there's something wrong with your canning line, or there's something growing in it, your cans will still get infected. The only way to do it is a tunnel. But the brand have to understand the differences between those things, because you might not always get, you might get an answer you're looking for, but it might not be the right one. And if you don't know the right questions to ask, it
Good.
may cost you down the line.
Great point. I might even write an article specifically on that, like, as a, what you
Oh
need.
yeah, the shelf stability is a huge issue, and in
Yeah.
beer it's not an issue because of the pH, and it has alcohol in it,
Mm.
and we're not adding sugars. Well, all of these products have sugars in them, so their stuff's going to grow in them if you do not manage it. And those are real things. Like, it's a whole industry of process authority letters that seems to be this bit murky science that we don't, that's not we have to get a letter from someone saying, here are the numbers. And that's just something you got to go get. So yeah, there's a lot of little nuances to the industry you got to
Yeah.
wrap your head around.
And do you think we have good shelf stability? Do you have any knowledge about, like, what kind of shelf stability is? So everybody's pasteurizing their cans basically in some sort
Well,
of.
no, not everyone. I mean, there's a lot of them use preservatives, which work just fine, right? I mean, that's been proven that stuff is really stable. It's just folks usually want a clean label. I'm trying to see if this
Oh.
beverage has anything in it. And when the industry started, we did a test and we found most of the products in the market didn't have any THC in them. They all got scalped. And that was a process in which the THC would bind to the can liner. And that
Oh,
was,
yes, I remember that. Yeah.
and it's gotten figured out. People understand it. So it, I would say in general now, I would certainly be much more confident that what's on the can is what's in the can.